to share a bit of that knowledge with you today. Please know that this talk will not, it's not just going to be me talking every time, okay? So it's going to be relatively interactive. So please feel free when I need you to type something, when I need you to respond. If you don't want to unmute your mic, the chat room is there. Feel free to drop your opinions in the chat so that we all engage in this. Because I have like a couple of slides, over 20 slides, 45 minutes or 40. I just want to give you guys that, and I hope that you will be able to understand everything. Now, the theme of your event is embracing digital technology and innovation. Honestly, you do not need to preach to someone these days to tell the person to embrace digital technology, because right now it's everywhere. It's everywhere. The reason we're having this meeting in the comfort of my room and you are in your rooms or wherever you are now is because of technology. Okay, we're able to broadcast about these events through technology. So many things exist because of so many things we can do. We do that because technology has made them possible, because we have softwares, we have hardwares, we have interfaces that let people to share information. And they say our world is dependent on technology, because really a lot of what make up our modern society has been built around technology. And even though technology has so many components that are very useful for the existence of technology, I stated that software still remains at the core of technology. Software is like the spirit in technology, right? With no spirit, there is no life. So you could have a hardware. If it doesn't have a software powering it, it's almost like just a manual machine. Can be as well be a hoe or a hammer that needs someone to always move it before it can do anything useful. All right, next slide. Thank you. So I have a question for you guys, and I will need you to go into the chat room right now. I will be reading your chats. Okay, so what comes to your mind when you hear software development? Just short phrases, 2, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4 words. I just want you to put that in the chat right now. I'm reading. Please, let's just quickly do that so that we can move on. We have about 17 here, so I should see at least answers of half of that. Don't worry, there's no wrong answer, there's no right answer. It's just what you feel. I cannot judge your here software development. Because I want to be sure that you guys can hear me. Okay, Shamaka says coding, awesome. Making software better or building software, maintaining it, awesome. Development of software, obviously. All right, I need 1 or 2 more. Ease of things, majorly automation of tasks. That's a very interesting take on that. Very interesting one. I love that. All right. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Software development. What is software development? Because if software development is actually very important in technology, right, then it means that we need to know what it is actually so that we can be part of technology. So what is it? So it's just a set of computer activities that's okay. So what happened? Okay, so a set of computer activities that's involved in the production and creation of processes that we're able to use to automate some processes. Okay. Sorry, yes, yeah. You can move to the next slide, please. Okay. All right. So you want to create a software, right? Software development is every single activity that you're going to use to create that. And what that means is it's beyond coding. All right. It's beyond just writing instructions. It's beyond just hosting websites. Okay. It's beyond just creating something people can use. Software development encompasses every single activity, okay, that will lead to the successful creation of a tool, okay, that will be digitally useful to people. So it's not just the code. Yes, that's part of it, right? Okay, it's not just getting your own custom domain. That's it goes beyond that and it involves everything. So next slide. This is next. You missed something. All right. So if it is beyond coding, all right, it means that there are different aspects to software development, and if there are different aspects to software development, it means that there are different kinds of work that needs to be done. And when you hear work, it means there's a job, okay, and job is basically a career. So since we have different things to do in software development, then we have various kind of careers. So different people working on different aspects of things, but all aimed at developing a software. Okay. Now, when we get software development, most times we just go to software engineers, right? Okay, software engineers, because the software you need to code, you need to write code and that. And so most times a lot of people are very constrained to picking up a career in software development or in technology because they feel I don't know how to code. So since I don't know how to code, I don't think I have a career in software development. But really, you are just looking at one aspect of software development. There are tons of others, and some of them don't require you to know how to code. Okay, they do require you to be conversant with technology, software, and all, but you don't necessarily need to write a line of code. Okay, so there are different careers you can have. You could be a software engineer. Obviously, that's one software engineer, software developer. All right, you can be a QA engineer. QA engineer means quality assurance engineer. Projects, you can be a project manager. You can be a UI UX, which is user interface slash user experience designer. You can be a DevOps engineer, which is a development operations engineer. And you can be a data analyst. And honestly, there's so much more career opportunities that you have in software development, and they are not limited to this. I'll be talking about these careers, especially the ones I've listed out here. But as you know, I'm a software engineer, so pardon me if I am a little bit biased towards engineering. So I'll talk a lot more about software engineering, right? But since it's all software development, part of the things I would say is applicable to other aspects, all right, of other career aspects. Okay, so I would still talk about the others in the end, but major of my what I will focus mostly on is software engineering. So are we ready? Can I see some yeah in the chat so that I'll be sure that you guys are here? Just type yeah if you are ready to move on.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Okay. I'm still looking for some like four more people. Say yeah. All right. All right. So let's go on. Next slide. Thank you all for typing. All right. So becoming a software engineer. Obviously, I'm a software engineer. So I want to talk about software engineering, right? There are software engineering is vast, right? That it's so There's so many different things you could do with software engineering, even if you're using the same programming languages. I've worked as a software engineer in about 3 different companies, and I did different things, even though some of them I repeated the same programming language, but it was different workflow, different responsibilities. But I was a software engineer in all of them. So what can you do as a software engineer? You can be a web developer. Now, a web developer majorly builds web applications. Okay, applications that run on, well, at the high level, just easyweb.com. You have a web application right there. As a web developer, you can work on either the back end or the front end. Now, the back end is basically where there's some logic, where you process data, where you have connectivity to your database, and a lot more of logic that happens behind the scene and is not usually visible to your users. While the front end is interact with. So if you go tech, obviously there are several careers, which of them. But if you say you want to be a software engineer or a software developer, most times I usually advise you start from web development. Reason is this: it is relatively easy to get started, especially with HTML and CSS. Okay, and if you know about HTML and CSS, you can just say yeah or something in the chat that you know HTML and CSS. I want to know how many people at least have some idea of what I'm saying.
We know about it.
Awesome. All right. So awesome. Thanks, Lucas. So you can actually start with that because it's relatively easy to start up, right? You can in no time start seeing the result of your code. So you can write little stuff and you can already see the results of it being outputted. You don't really need deep programming knowledge to get started. So it's relatively easy to start. And I say, you know what, start web development, and from there build your programming skills. That will actually help you to not be scared, because sometimes you can start from a wrong place and you get overwhelmed and you're like you don't want to do this anymore. Okay, but if you start there, it's relatively easier. Okay, as software engineer, you can be a mobile developer. Mobile developer simply means you can create mobile applications, things like WhatsApp, phone, and so many more. Now, native development are mobile applications that run on only one operating system. So it can either run on an Android or it runs on iOS. Okay, and depending on where you are building for, you have to learn the programming language. So if you're building for Android, you have to use Java. Recently, you can use Kotlin. If you are programming for iOS, you have to learn Objective C. Okay, and it was just, I mean, it's broad. Okay, and there are tools that you need to set up. So, but as software development kept advancing, right, we found they created hybrid systems whereby you can use one language to create for multiple operating systems. And then we have React Native that uses JavaScript, or you have Flutter that uses Dart programming language to be able to create one app that would run on all different operating systems. So when you need to know programming, okay, obviously you need to understand databases, you need tools to work, and soft skills, which is very important. Okay, let's go on. And please, this can be applied to other careers, right? It's not just strictly software engineering. You can also use this. So please, even if you don't like software engineering, please follow along. So what's programming language? You know a lot of programming languages, right? You know Java, PHP, Java. Okay, there's some you have courses on in your class. If there's anyone, you can just type that in the chat. All right. So language. Okay. you want to write, oh, Golang, yeah, that's another, right? You want to create a software, and the software runs on your computer, okay? So you have to instruct your computer to do those. And how do you talk to the computer? Well, you need to speak the language of the computer, and one of the easiest ways you can do that is to use a programming language. And a programming language is basically a high-level language which lets you to um, give instructions to a computer which end up becoming a software. Okay, and you need to know more than just the syntax. That is how to write, how to create a variable in Java, for instance. You need to know more than that. You need to be able to think in such a way that, depending on the programming language you are given, you are able to move into that, because you are not just thinking the programming language, you are thinking implementations. Okay, so a lot of people try to focus on, I want to learn Java, I want to learn Java, I want to learn Java, and you end up just learning Java. What happens when you are in a different environment where you are asked to use PHP, for instance? Okay, you don't have to start relearning PHP. You just need to learn concepts. Okay, so learn concepts, understand the principles of programming. Some of those principles, like object-oriented programming, OOP, functional programming, learning how to write algorithms, okay, declaring variables. These are things that you need to. I don't want to flog on that, because there are resources online for you to research. Okay, what are the concepts of programming, and you would see results of what you want to learn. And understanding the fundamentals, like I said, is key. Next slide. Sorry, guys, that I'm kind of like going through this a bit fast, because I want to cover some things. Hopefully you get access to the slides if you need to check back on anything. But I hope you are following. If you are following, you can just give me a smile in the chat. If you are following, just give me a smile. All right. If you are not following, you can give me a frown so that I know. All right. Okay, so the next thing you need to know is databases, right? So what's a database? A database used to store data in an effective way so that it can be retrieved. Earlier we used files, but files are actually not so sustainable to easily retrieve data. They can store large amounts of data, yes, but you can't effectively get the data when you need them. So databases were invented, and trust me, almost every software uses a database. Facebook has a database. Google has a database. Okay, Netflix has a database. Everybody's using databases. All right, so it's the database is actually one of the most important things you can learn. And it's not just restricted to programming, right? If you're there's some industrial development, Microsoft SQL, query language, SQL. You can search for SQL, all right? And SQL just lets you to be able to write queries that help you to persist data to your database and retrieve them from your database and maybe throw them into the software that you're being developing. Then more recently, we came up with a more flexible database called NoSQL. An example of that is MongoDB, and it's not as restrictive as MySQL, even though SQL is still very much in use. Both of these are actually in use in the market. But I think SQL is a very more important skill for you to learn before you should go start considering NoSQL or non-relational. Let's go to the next slide. Is anybody telling me? If anybody was, you can just like type how many minutes I have left. All right. Something you can use. Sorry. One thing in software development is you would use a lot of tools. Okay. Especially when you start doing this professionally. If you are just writing code, well, you won't really consider a lot of these tools. You just write your code, run it, and you smile, you're happy, you show it to your friends, like, hey, my program printed out hello, and he printed out my name together, and everybody is happy that, hey, you're able to do that, all right? But if you want to go into this professionally, you need to learn to work as part of a team. And working with that team, there are tools, okay, that you need to work with. Please, 25 minutes, is that including questions or without questions? Thank you. Okay, you need to know how to use these tools to work collaboratively and also effectively by yourself. One of the tools you need is an IDE. Now, most times, thanks. Most times, I do not advise people just starting programming to start with an IDE. Reason being that IDE is trying to help you, and sometimes in the process of helping you, it will confuse you. Okay, because it's giving you suggestions. Say, start with something like Notepad, which doesn't give you any sort of help. And from there, when you understand programming a bit better, you can move to an IDE. But you cannot do professional software engineering without an IDE. You would frustrate yourself. I mean, you can. You don't want to do that. All right. So IDE helps you to write your code. It gives you syntax highlighting. It points out errors if there's error in your code before you run it. It's just a nice tool to have. You need a translator. Translators are either compilers or interpreters. If you write a code in a programming language, even though your computer takes that, but your computer actually does not understand your Java, your PHP, it needs to be broken down into binary. And for that to happen, you need either an interpreter or a compiler that will do that translation for you. So if you're working with Java, you can't just write Java code and run it. You need to download the Java compiler. If you're working with Python, you need to download the Python interpreter. If you're working with JavaScript on the web, by default, browsers come with the JavaScript interpreter, so you might not need to do any additional setup. But just know that translators are important. Git. Now, this is one software I did not start using on time. And when I finally used it, I asked myself, why did you not use this all this while? All right. So what Git does for you is it saves the version of your code. So if you make some changes to your code, you can save it. It's just like taking a picture, right? So let's say you are trying to lose weight. Okay, you've done some exercise. You take a picture of yourself that day. You exercise the next week. You take another picture. You exercise the next week. You take another picture. Now you can go back and say, "Wow, this is how I was then. This is how I was then." Okay, and this is how I was then. All right, you can do all those comparisons. So what Git does is it takes your code, it snaps it the way it was at a particular point. You can make further changes. You can take another snapshot and so on and so forth, so that you have different versions of your code. If there's a bug, you can easily go back. You can check other things. You can recover your code. And benefits, you can actually store your code in the cloud, and you can easily retrieve it or transfer it to another system or collaborate with other people. So Git is actually a very important software. There are other things you need to know. You need to know about servers. You need to know how to deploy to a server, how to host your stuff, how to get files from the server. You need to use tools like Jira. If you can Google Jira, because Jira is one tool that is not restricted to software engineers. In fact, even non-software development teams make use of Jira to manage projects. Okay, so you can look into Jira. GitHub is a service that lets you push your Git repository. All those pictures you take with Git, you can push it on GitHub, and GitHub will save it for you. Anytime you need them, you can download, so to say, you can download them back. If you're working with a software development team, you need to communicate, and you need to know how to use tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, etc. There's so many other tools you need to learn, but guess what? You don't need all. You use the tools as they come. All right. I was working with a company who used Slack. I moved to a different company, and we're using Microsoft Teams. So Teams do that, and also you don't need to start learning all of them. All right. Just take it one step at a time. Take what's important. Take the programming. Then with time, you would see the need of a tool. Then you start using it. If you don't see the need of the tool, then there's really no point for you to start using it in the first place. I've lost anybody. But from these tools I've explained, can you just type which one do you think is your favorite from the tools which are showing now? Let's just do that in 30 seconds. Which of these tools were your favorites? Based on what I explained, IDE, it helps you to write your code. It gives you syntax highlighting. Wow, GitHub, awesome. Your translators, without your translator, the code wouldn't run because your computer wouldn't understand them. Okay, IDE, VS Code, awesome. GitHub, your Git saves your code in different versions for you to use. GitHub, but a question, I don't know if I'm tempted to take this question or I want to wait till the end. Please, can you just write your question down so that, by the end, I will take all the questions. I really want to address questions because that's what's more important to me. Okay, so I guess IDE and GitHub is winning. Git is also coming. I love Git because, Git is not just GitHub, okay? There are alternatives to GitHub. There's Bitbucket, there is GitLab, all right? And some others I probably don't know. So just like GitHub has taken that market. All right, next slide. Thank you all guys for sharing. Somebody went for translators. Thank you. Thank you. Because without your translator, what is your code doing? All right. Okay, so I want to spend some time with these soft skills. Now, people just want to learn how to code. I want to be that bad guy that you know that when they call me, I will write the code and everybody will be so impressed and all. Yeah, that is good. It's good to have your technical knowledge. It's good to know what to write. It's good to be skillful. Okay, but it's important for you to have soft skills because as a software engineer or as somebody in the software industry, you are not going to be an island. You're not going to be working alone. You're going to be working with people. And if you do not know how to collaborate effectively with people, one, your software projects will suffer. Two, you will not move so far with your project in your career because you need people to recommend you. You need people who will say, hey, I need this guy works effectively with people. Let's get him let's get him on our team. And really, when you apply for jobs, right, they have seen your resume, okay? They know that you know Java for 10 years, even before they created it, all right? But they want to know if you'll be useful to their team. So that's why soft skills are important. So above all your technical skills, you need soft skills, all right? Communication, you need to know how to communicate effectively without shouting. Some people don't know how to communicate without raising their voice, especially when things are not going right. You need to know that you need teamwork and collaboration. You need to be able to work with the tools that you need to collaborate and at the same time collaborate effectively with your peers. Open-mindedness and adaptability. As you will see later, software engineering is something that changes, right? A lot. And like I said, over the different jobs I've done, I've had to switch careers. You need to have an open mind so that when you go to a new role, you learn the new tools there, you see the new workflow there, and be able to adapt into that new environment because the survival of your software career depends on your ability to adapt to new environments and situations. Because if you cannot adapt, your chances of the number of jobs or your career choices will reduce. Okay, so be adaptable. I started programming with I know Java. I might talk about. You need accountability and humility. They should be able to ask you, did you put this bug in this code? And you should be able to respond, yes, you did. Okay, so take responsibility, be accountable to people, and be humble. Be humble, really. Be humble in whatever you're doing. Do not try. I saw a tweet some time ago, and this guy came on a team. All right, and this is not even Nigeria, right? He came on the team, and He looked at your code. He was like, who wrote this? Ranting about the whole code and all that. He wasn't kind. He wasn't giving constructive criticism. He was just being rude about the whole thing. Unknown to him, it was one of their managers who was actually the core in creating of that particular software, and he was right there when he was making all those statements. And the guy did not last long in that job. So just be humble in whatever you do, and you need to have confidence. All right. Sometimes you have a skill, but because you just feel that, well, you're not good enough, it happens to almost everyone. All right. Just okay. Just be confident in your skill and be open to learning. So please, soft skills are very important. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so a good software engineer balances both technical skills and soft skills. Your technical skills can get you an interview, but your soft skills will give you a job. All right. So you should ensure that you are, while you are building all your Java, you are learning all the tools, while you are learning, becoming a better person yourself. All right. That's like, okay, I should have maybe like 10 minutes now. So let me move. So I want to talk about other careers quickly. We have QA engineer. So a QA engineer, basically they do testing. All right. So what deals as expected, so that before it shoots to your users, there's less error, there's less bugs, and your users have great experience. Usually, there's this joke in software engineering that software engineers and QAs always fight, because the QAs are always looking for errors in the software engineer's job, when the software engineer is like, it is working. And so there's this back and forth, and you're like, okay, these guys always fight. All right. Project. As a QA engineer, you don't really need strong programming knowledge, but there are some things for automation, for automating some things, you need to write some code here and there. But sometimes it might just be operating and using a software that was created. You have a project manager. Now, this is a great place for people who do not really want to write code, because you're just in charge of planning the project. Okay, you're planning the project, you're giving updates, and ensuring that the project is successful. So if you have done some kind of project management or even event management, because event management, there's a lot of things that happen. You're asking people about the chairs, you're asking the person that's bringing the cake and all that. So you see that you can actually switch from that to a tech field in project management, but you need to like know what you need to learn to be part of that. All right, you have UI UX. As a UI UX designer, you are tasked with creating designs that your user can, and you're like, what are you thinking? All right, where is the login button there? All right, so there are some apps that were they're poorly designed. Either there was no UI UX designer there, or there was just a not really good one, or just some pretty bad business decisions. So, but regardless, as a UI UX designer, you need to create something that looks good and is easily usable by your users, and also implementable by the engineers. Don't create a UI that nobody can code. All right, it's important. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right. Please take note of all these fields, because I'm going to ask you which one you are interested in. You have deployment. It supports the whole development process, and so ensures that there are tools. Okay, ensures that you are able to ship your software effectively. For my time, I don't want to start explaining what continuous integration is. All right, and so more, and so many other things. All right, that they do to ensure that your code is deployed. All right, and users are able to use and access it. If you are if you love hardware, all right, working with servers, although you need, these days there are a lot of new softwares that come out like Docker, Jenkins, etc. You need to learn because there are tools you need to learn. Like I said, depending on your software career, you need to learn tools. Okay, as a project manager, you definitely need to know Jira. As a UX designer, UI UX, you need to know things like Figma. As a DevOps engineer, you need to know things like Docker, Jenkins, okay, Kubernetes, etc. Depending on which you want to focus on. You, like I said before, you must not learn all. Just get the one that's important, focus on that. As a data scientists get data, and they try to make sense out of that data, all right, by finding out trends. They are able to make projections, okay, based on that data. Now, you might have some knowledge of programming because depending on how far you want to go in that career, some make use of Python to write some scripts. SQL is very important. You need to know SQL for databases if you're going to work as a data scientist. But it's more about analyzing data, knowing what's happening. Hey, are we having plenty users? Oh, most of our users are from Lagos. We have a little bit of users from US. So the data scientist is able to bring that. And there are other fields. So software development is expanding, right? And each day we are getting new rules. Before, DevOps engineer did not exist because you could easily just deploy, a software engineer could easily just deploy something. But now there are processes, so we needed to incorporate DevOps engineer. You have legal tech, lawyers who handle legal matters, drafting out contracts, being able to create your documents and all that. There's legal tech, there's security analysis for checking vulnerabilities in your system. There's database administrator who manages databases. There's a product designer who goes around designing the products, what it should be, what are the things users are looking for that we should put into our products, and so many others. Okay, you could literally search online for them. So next slide, please. Of all these I have mentioned, what career do you think you're interested in? Let's just quickly do this in 30 seconds. Just type which of them resonated more with you. Which do you find interesting? Is it software development? I want to quickly wrap this up. Please just quickly type. Is it software engineer? Is it QA? Is it project manager? UI UX, awesome. UI UX, that's two for UI UX. Software engineer, data scientist. Thank God, I was already thinking that nobody wanted to be a software engineer like me. All right, that's security analysis. That's awesome. So let's go on, please. I want to rush now. So now that you know what you want to go for, let's go on. Next slide, please. Okay. Yeah, you can go. So there are some disadvantages in software development careers, and I feel I should just warn you, right? So things change very quickly. So you might be in one role, and the next thing they say, this software is no longer, this tool is no longer working. You need the updated one. Things change fast, and you need to adapt. Okay. You're expected to have experience. You go to a place and they're ready, like, how many experience do you have? You're like, I just graduated. You say, no, we need experience. All right. So how do you go about that? While you are studying, while you are looking for a job, start building projects, start working on stuff. Next, there are several tools to learn, so you need to learn them. Let's go to the next slide. But there are lots of advantages. You have continuous growth because you are pushed to learn. There are job opportunities. There's a community that can help you. Good compensation. Really, you have good compensation, and you have flexible work environment like working from home, etc. Let's go on. Software engineer is not hard, please. Okay, so how do you get started? Be willing to grow. You must be willing to grow. Have that in mind that you want to grow. Then learn, study. There are a lot of free resources online. You can go to W3 schools, Udemy, Free Code Camp, YouTube, free resources. There are also paid resources. Okay, use this and build yourself. Build a portfolio. When you learn, don't just be learning and say you're waiting for a job. Learn, build something, put it out there. Okay, it doesn't have to make sense. When I started, I built Easy Votes and I put it out there. It built my skill and it helped me to understand flows in software development. There's open source development, build projects, learn algorithms, especially for software engineers. engineers, and practice, 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 practice. All right, thank you. Sorry, I have to move very fast. Next slide. All right, so lastly, interviews and getting a job. Your degree is important, right? But there are cases where they don't even need your degree. What they need is what you can do. Okay, so they will pick somebody who did not go to school over somebody who has a degree because the person can deliver. All right, so your degree is very good. I have a master's, so yeah, I cannot say your degree is not good. All right, but you need to build your skill because all the jobs I got, none of them cared that I had a master's. They didn't care. All right. You have relevant experience. So how do you get experience if you don't have a job? Build stuff. Work as you learn, build stuff, put it out there. Apply for jobs. Don't wait until you are ready. All right? Don't wait until you are ready. Apply for jobs. When you apply for jobs, right, you know the requirements, what is needed for the job. Next time you can apply better. If you get an interview, you might not get the job, but you have learned and you know what to prepare for next time. All right, let's go. Next slide. I think I'm almost done now, so that we can get questions. Okay, so this is what I just said. When you apply, when you fill the interview, you know what to do next time. All right, next. All right, thank you all so much. Sorry I had to rush some bits of it. I hope that you guys are able to get some of the things I'm able to share. I would love to hear your questions. I think I still have 10 minutes for questions now. All right, you can just either raise your hand or something. Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm Abdullah Hassan. Okay, I'm Abdullah Hassan. I'm from National Production Service Center, and I'm a computer science student of 200 level.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
So far, I'm the assistant North Central coordinator.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
I really enjoyed the lecture because my core intention was to be a software engineer. Thank you, sir, for this lecture.
Thank you.
So my question here is that I really want you to elaborate about the differences between a computer scientist, computer engineer, and a software engineer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So I will start with a computer scientist and software engineer. A computer scientist and a software engineer are just like a physicist and an engineer. A computer scientist deals more with theory. They research algorithms. They research how fast the algorithm runs. They discover new processes in developing software. That's computer scientist. So a computer scientist is more of theory. All right. While a software engineer is where you go into more of the building stuff. Now, because of the similarities, you can easily switch from computer science to software engineering because it's basically they are very similar. Okay. That's software engineers. Now, for a computer engineer really is kind of vague because as a computer engineer, you can be a software engineer, all right? Because your computer is just there, but you can also be a hardware person. So if you say a computer engineer, are you like working on hardware? Are you a software engineer? So, but really, it can be used synonymously with software engineer, right? Hope that answers you.
Okay.
Hello.
I actually have a question,
All
and the
right.
question goes this way. As a solo developer, how easy it is to like learn Git and GitHub when you are not working with a team?
Okay.
Okay, my name is Odewale Peter from National University of Ibadan. I'm 200 level student. Do you get the question, sir?
Yes, I got your question. Awesome. Okay, so one thing that's common in software development is that you will see a lot of people say they are software developer. Most of my software development journey was actually me learning stuff myself by taking courses, right? Git, GitHub, were relatively simple things you can learn, right? You can learn them on your own. On your own doesn't mean you just have to cram them. There are resources online. There are websites you can go to. You can read all those things online. There are YouTube courses. There are people who put YouTube courses. There are courses on Udemy. You can see somebody explaining those things to you. You don't necessarily have to like go to like a computer school unless if you are somebody who wants to learn with a crowd, or you like people around, or you like the classroom settings. Then yeah, you can go and learn something like that. All right, but you can do, yeah.
So the point is, I'm a software engineer, but the issue is I find it difficult to like, except if I want to like upload the project for backup purpose on my GitHub, or you know the advanced level where you have to do all this merge, you know, before I don't yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
Okay, so what I will tell you now, you can search on GitHub, search for Git Workflow. All right, search for Git Workflow. They will explain to you some of all those processes. Now, what is really important is that you learn the basic, understand the basic. What does merge do? What does rebase do? Okay, you need to learn all those things by taking a course. There are some interactive things that maybe you write a Git command, it shows you what actually happens. So just look for those things. Practice on a project that is not live, so that you don't break something. That since you already know, okay, what you need now is more of practicing and going back to the basics. So if you can do those things, you'll be proficient in it. But search for Git Workflow also. Okay, hope that answers you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Paula Bekas. Adaptability Study Center in Computer Science Department. So you said the other time that it's good to learn, to know, to have knowledge of most of programming languages. So, for example, if like you are asked to like maybe work more on Java, and then you are asked to like do something in Python, like you said it's good to have basic knowledge and everything. So my question is it a must like you know everything? Like won't it be very stressful and like boring? Like learning one language takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of like it takes a lot of time to master, not to talk of all the programming languages. So my question is it advisable for us to learn all programming languages?
All right. Thank you for the question. And you are right. It will be very stressful. Very stressful. In fact, it is impossible. All right, to do that. What I said is, when you are learning a specific programming language, all right, don't just learn that programming language. Learn the principle of operating in the programming language. For instance, you are learning Java, right? And you declare a variable string s equals to open quotes Steve. All right. Now you go to Python, right? And you are asked to declare a variable. Now you have to ask yourself, how do they declare variables in Python? Because you already understand the concepts of declaring variables. Now you look that up, you get the syntax, but you already understood the semantics before you came to Python. So you just get that syntax, right? And you apply it there, and you are good. You get. So you are not learning all programming languages. You are learning, start with one. You can, you might be out learning multiple at the same time. Start with one, but while learning that one, make sure you're understanding the principles. All right. You're not just trying to learn a programming language that you can just create a program and run away with it. Then, if you should move to a different project that requires a different programming language and you are willing enough to take that project, maybe it's a job, okay, then you can, while learning the new program, the syntax of that language, you are able to apply your existing knowledge and you are able to learn a new programming language at that point, delivering a software and using your existing knowledge. I hope that answers you.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
sir.
think I
Thank you,
want
sir.
to ask the question. Okay, now regarding the becoming a software engineering or developer to be precise. So, is it necessary? You said something which I'm trying to get the clarification very well. At least you're saying, does it necessarily know programming? Must I know code to become a software developer? Is there necessary materials for me to get to become a software developer without knowing codes?
All right. So, you see, there are levels to this things, right? Now, if you want to be a web designer, all right, in the sense that somebody says, hey, I have a website, I just want it to be on the internet, there are tools like WordPress and a host of others. In fact, these days they push out no-code solutions, right? You don't need to know code to do something like that. You just click, drag and drop. I mean, knowing code will help you to modify some things, but you don't need to know how to code, right? But if you want to be a software developer or a software engineer, coding is the tool we use for working. Okay? You need to be able to write code. You need to be able to understand algorithms because most jobs you apply for, the first thing they give is an algorithm test, and your algorithm test require you to write code, and you need to understand how code work before you can attempt those tests. And if you don't get the test, they don't even move further to the next phase. I don't know if you're getting that. So to be a software engineer, right, you need to be able to learn how to code. And coding is not intimidating. Just take it one step at a time. Advice, you can start with, if you are not so technical, you can start with HTML and CSS. It's not strictly programming, but at least it gives you an idea of code. And from there, move to things like JavaScript or PHP. But to be a software engineer, you need to know how to code. But you can definitely do some software projects without code because there are software that allows you to do that. Hope you are clear on that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, awesome.
I have a question.
I have a question.
Hello,
I have a question. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Precious.
Okay, my name is Precious Davis from Abeokuta Study Center, Computer Science 100 level.
All right.
Okay, so my question is, so last year I learned HTML, CSS, and a little of JavaScript. So when we were done with the program, my instructor was like, we should put in for jobs and everything that, so that we could start working on what we've learned. And I'm like, I'm not even confident of what I learned so far. That can that get me a slot, like an internship or something? Because I've actually checked, and most times they always like you have to know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and I'm like, I'm not really that strong yet in JavaScript. And also for my CSS, I just feel like I've not learned. When I was checking CSS, I was seeing a lot of like CSS3, CSS, a lot of CSS programs, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
how am I going to learn all this and confidence? Because I was like, I don't think if I should even put it out there that anyone's going to like actually call me or something. Though this year I'm actually starting again from the scratch for web development and everything because I really want to learn, but just that confidence is just not there. That am I really good like that or
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, I got that. The first time I learned JavaScript, I closed the book and I did not study it for months because I was seeing strange things. All right. So it's like that. Okay. So, but this is what I want to say. Most times, right? Most times, people don't feel ready. Even as I am with the years I have written code, I'm looking at some jobs and I'm like, okay, can I do this? Right? It's normal. It's a normal feeling for you to have. But like I said earlier in my presentation, you should apply for jobs no matter what. Most times people don't apply for job not because of the fear that they are not ready, but because they don't want to get a no. And nobody likes rejection. Okay, so if they get a no, they feel less of themselves. But getting a no doesn't mean you are not good. All right. The number of no's I got before I got my current job, you would think that I started coding 1 year ago or less. All right. There are different reasons. Either there's another candidate, they're not interested in your particular skill set. Okay, so many reasons. All right, so a no doesn't mean you are not good. All right, it just means this is not the place or at this time for you. So take that no. If they give you feedback, take that, improve yourself. Okay. Definitely apply for jobs. So long as you have learned something, then very importantly, if you have learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? Build a website, build your personal portfolio. Go online, search for portfolios, look at how they look like. Okay, try and replicate it. Build something. There are places you can post websites free. You have. That's awesome.
Because I don't know color code is so I don't know like how to do the colors and everything.
Color code. Yeah. So when you have issues like that, you just search online, you get the answers, and then you're able to you fix it, and that gives you experience. Next time when you see color code issues, you just fix it once and you're done with that. So definitely build projects, put it online. When you're applying for internships, show them I built this. I was the one who built this. Okay. If they tell you no, that's your business, but you know that you've done something and you are building your skill. By all means, keep learning. All right.
Yeah, sorry, please. And also, just one more question. So, there's this thing I was checking online about all these tech companies. I don't like during the interview, you're going to put a problem for you to solve or decode or something, and I don't understand like what that's supposed to mean. Like I should solve it through, and that was because I actually like wanted to apply, but when I was just saying I will solve a problem or something, like I can't even solve the problem of JavaScript yet. If I should come and solve a problem for something that I didn't even know.
All right. Oh wait, sorry, before I ask your question, Mr. Topper, do I still have time? I actually don't mind spending some extra minutes, but if you are, I don't know if you guys have a specific release time. Sorry, I thought somebody was going to answer.
Mr. Joshua, actually by the schedule you are already out of time.
Yeah.
I think like you are 2 minutes out of time, but let's just because we can still see that we still have some students that have. Let's see. So let's just say you have like 3 more minutes.
Okay, so 3 more minutes. That's 12 minutes. That's 12 minutes. Okay. So let's be fast with our questions so that we can go on. All right. So Precious, what you just saw there is an algorithm test. Okay. Now algorithm test is it's the number one way interviews and companies use to assess software developers for their proficiency. Okay. So you can see an example. Find out if a string is a palindrome. What is a palindrome? All right, that's the first question. It's not even the code that comes to your mind. All right, or for instance, find out from a given set of numbers, find out which of them are even numbers. Okay, those are kind of questions you can see and problems that you can be asked to solve. Now, that when you see things, I like when you see things like that because it makes you know that hey, I do not know this yet. Instead of saying I don't know this yet, let me rest. I don't know this yet. How can I learn it? Okay, so there are different places where you can learn algorithms. You can search online data structures and algorithms. please know that data structures and algorithms is one of the most important skills for a software engineer, especially if you want to go high. But like I said, start with the basics. Learn JavaScript, HTML. When you're comfortable with JavaScript, all right, and some things, you can start moving into algorithms, because you definitely need to learn how to write algorithms with time. But please take it one step at a time. There are easy algorithms, there are difficult algorithms. The algorithms that I see, I shake my head like, and there are some, they are difficult, but I'm able to solve them, and there are some like, this is too easy. All right. So there are different levels. Keep learning, learn your algorithms, and if you, there are places, a lot of places you can play on algorithms. So just like I said, keep learning. When you see things, learn and keep going. All right, next question, please. I hope that's good.
Good evening. I have a question.
Hi, Chidima.
Good evening. My name is Chidima Perpetua from Lagos Study Center, 400 level, first semester. So my question is this: I'm currently learning UI UX. I'm using Figma, but I'm actually having problem on the prototype part of it. I don't know. Is there another software I can use for it? And is my second question is the prototype the UX part of it? Because I understand that UI design is just the, UI is just the that user experience, interface part of it. So which one is the UX?
All right. Okay, so let me answer your first question. Are there other tools? Yes, definitely. There will be other tools. Most times, when there is a tool that does something, there are definitely alternatives. But most times, there are some that have stood out over time, and Figma is one of those. I know Adobe XD is another you can use, but Figma is a great tool to learn. Learn Figma. That's what I would tell you, because a lot of places use Figma. One thing I didn't mention, when you're learning tools, when learning graph programming languages or tools, learn the one that will give you a wider job opportunity. For instance, if somebody learns Golang and another person gets JavaScript, if the person that learning Golang has 10 jobs to apply for, the person learning JavaScript will have 100. All right. So does it mean Golang is bad? No. Okay, you might even get more pay for Golang because you guys are few, but you just have to search a bit harder. So learn the Figma. All right. Learn Figma. If you want to learn other tools later on, fine, but you can start with Figma. UI is definitely what your user sees and interacts with. UX is what's the experience, right? How do your users feel when using your app? Some apps, when you click on login, you have to go up, you have to come down, click on some buttons to close and all that. So it's strenuous for your users. But if everything is accessible to your users in such a way that they are able to go through your app easily, the users are happy, you are also happy, because more users come back to your application. So when you prototype an application, you are trying to test if the experience, okay, the users will have, it's something you guys are hoping to achieve. Your UI is just there. You can see your UI, of course, but you want to know if maybe the login flow and everything it's fine, okay, or you want to tweak that a bit. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes. So the prototype is the UX part of it, right?
Yeah, you use it to test your user experience, and also if the UI is functional also. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I have any other question? Or we're done for today?
Sorry, sir.
Okay,
Connection.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah, I'm having another question, please. Can I go ahead?
You can go ahead, please.
Please, I just need a little guide about professional and an accurate course on software engineering.
Okay. Most times, when it comes to software engineering certificates, try to be careful. Okay, so I'm currently a Google certified web developer. All right, but really, other than the fact that I'm Google certified, it's not really useful. I have a lot of certificates of courses that I've done online. All right, they're just there. All right, it's the knowledge that is more important. You can have a certificate for something. People graduate from school, they get certificate, they do not attend class. Okay, but all they have the certificate. They didn't learn anything from school, not so much, right? It's the head knowledge. So first, rather than going for certificates, all right, go for the knowledge, all right? I would advise certificates for things that are more specialized, things like AWS engineer, all right, things like a Unity developer. Those are more because they are kind of like restricted to a specific tool. Well, if you see something like a PHP developer, I don't really see the need of a certificate for that because if you're a PHP developer, you can write PHP code, all right. So for this phase, they are not bad to have, please. You can definitely go do them, but more than getting the certificates, right? Understand?
So share because I'm currently in that situation. And, I just want you to like share the experience. Maybe if you are in that